let's talk about record keeping. So again, this starts on page 49, AD 41 if you're in an adult daycare, and A25 if you are an at-risk program. So these are some of the forms that are required to be kept while you're doing CACFP. Again, all forms must be maintained daily by month at each site for any institution participating in CACFP. All records are required to be kept on site at the location that is approved in the institution's application. So if something does change, please let us be aware of that there was a change to where the records are located. This is where our program specialists go to come and do their review. Now, it needs to be aware that someone at the institution must have access to the records at all times, because again, when we show up, records have to be produced within 1 hour of the program specialist arrival. And we're not saying we have to get everything all at once, but we do need to start getting information within an hour of us being there. So someone does have to know where the key is or know where the records are, so that way they can get this information to the program specialist when needed. If you are a daycare center and you do the at-risk program, as a reminder that you do have to keep separate records. So you do have one for your regular meals and you have stuff for at-risk meals. So there are certain documents that have to be separated, like the menu of serve form, attendance records. Those things need to be kept separate. There is a box on the items to indicate if it is for at-risk or if it is for regular meals. If you are participating in at-risk, again, you are allowed to serve meals during spring break, during Christmas break, but you cannot do it during summer break. It is only allowed to be done during the regular school calendar year. So if school starts on August 15th and ends May 15th, that's when you can do the program. You cannot do the program, say August 14th or May 16th. It can only be during the school calendar year. If you don't know what at-risk is, it's a different program. It's a separate program from regular CACFP. It is only available for school-age children. They're the only ones that can participate. It has to be in a primarily organized to provide care in an after-school setting. It's required to have an enrichment or an educational component. And in the area of the location, all kids do eat for free, but wherever your location is, where you're serving the meals, that attendance area has to be at least 50% of students are eligible for free and reduced price meals. And we base that off of the low income report. Okay, so let's talk about record keeping forms. So for everybody, adult daycare, everyone, you're required to keep daily attendance records. We may have to have arrival and departure times, but I will be honest, a lot of times if you do need to keep daily arrival and departure times, we will look at DHS's information that you have instead of you having to do everything twice. Now, program specialists can require it. Sometimes it depends on how your review went, but it's the reason why they stated they need it is because an institution can serve each child is only allowed 2 main meals and a snack or 2 snacks and a main meal per child to be claimed per day. So sometimes we need this information to ensure that these kids, even though they may have had more than 3 meals at your facility, that you only claim them for 3 meals per day. Another record keeping form is the meal count worksheet, which we do have that here. For CACFP for regular daycare centers, we do have 2 of them, one on page 58 and one on page 60. It has been split up for those that are infants, and then we have one that's just for children. Now, we used to have it all combined. It's just we needed to add something to the form and we didn't have enough room. But if you do go to the interactive forms in worksheets, we do have one. There's tabs at the bottom. It has one for children, one for infants, and then one that is combined, so you can use that. And when you take your meal counts, as a reminder, it has to be taken at the point of service. And a point of service is when the child receives a reimbursable meal. It's not because they were in attendance. Just because they were in attendance does not mean that they ate a reimbursable meal. And then daily record of meals form. This is the most common. I'm going to say 99% of you that do have more than 3 meals per day that you're serving at your facility. This is the form that you're using to ensure that you're not claiming more than 3 meals per day. So again, maybe you're a 24-hour center and you have a child in your care and they ate 5 meals, but even though they ate 5 meals, you can only claim 3. Again, 2 main meals and a snack, or 2 snacks and a main meal. The one good thing about the DROMS is it is both an attendance record and it's a meal count worksheet. We do have this in worksheets as well. For those that only do serve 3 meals, we have had a lot of requests of people that just serve breakfast, lunch, and say PM snack. They really like this form, so we did create one just for them. So if you go to the interactive worksheets in the worksheet section, you can see this there with those 3. Now, this is an example of the DROMS form. As you can see, Steffi Douglas was there on the 3rd, 4th, and 7th, and on the 3rd and 7th, she was there and had 4 meals. But again, you can only claim 3 meals per child per day. So what I tell people to do is do that, because this form does do calculations for you. So what I would suggest is have your teachers, because even though you may not be claiming the meal, it still has to be marked that they were there. So what I would do is have your teachers, if they're the ones that do your meal counts in the classroom, is put an X by any student or any child that ate a meal and what meal they had. And then at the end of the month, I would take the paper form that they filled out by hand, and then you can circle it, you can do highlighting, you can do whatever you want just to kind of indicate what meals that you're not claiming. And then go into the electronic version and just put an X or a 1 next to the meal that you are claiming. And that way it does the meal count worksheet. So you have the paper version that will show every meal the child ate. And then you'll have the electronic version that only shows the 3 meals that you're claiming. And again, that way it does the meal counts for you, because the electronic version, if you put an X or whatever you put in there, it's going to count it. So that's my big suggestion I have to you. Now, what people tend to do is, say you had 20 kids at breakfast and you're only claiming 9 of them because the rest of them say you're claiming for supper, and 9 of them were the only ones that they did not eat more than 3 meals per day. So you claim them for breakfast, lunch, and PM snack. Even though you're claiming 9 kids for breakfast, if you had 20 kids that ate breakfast and ate a reimbursable meal, then you need to indicate 20 children on your menu of serve forms, not 9. It's not how many you claimed, it's how many you served. Because I have a strong suspicion you didn't just give 9 kids a reimbursable meal and gave the rest of them not one, so you didn't claim them. If they all received a reimbursable bill, you tell the total number. So really the paper form, whatever that number says, so if it says 20, it should match your menu of serve forms, but you may have claimed a different number, because if you do serve more than 3 meals per day, you can only claim 3. So as a reminder, if a child is there for 4 meals, it can only be claimed for 3. But they still need to be listed to show what meals they were there and they did eat, and showing us, and like with this case, they circled in red which meals they were taking that they were not claiming. But if you had 20 kids that ate breakfast, even though you claimed 9, 20 kids should be on your menu of serve forms, and 20 kids should be on the paper document showing that those kids were there. Those numbers need to match. There's also on the meal count worksheet one called non-claimable meals, and that's where you'll put the ones that you didn't claim into that. So if you had 9 children that you didn't that you did claim, so you had 11 that you didn't, that should go on your meal count worksheet under non-claimable meals, because you didn't claim them because you could only claim them for 3 meals per day. So so the menu of serve form does not always match the claim, especially if you're serving more than 3 meals per day. Your meal count worksheet is not always going to reflect, and the menu of serve forms are not going to match, because again, you have some meals that you can claim on, some meals that you can't if they ate more than 3 meals per day. But the paper document that you have, that the teacher should be listing every child that ate that day, that number should match the menu of serve form. And again, as we mentioned before, on the meal counts, a meal is counted for reimbursement at the point of service. The point of service is at the time a reimbursable meal was given to the enrolled child or participant. Attendance records cannot be used for the meal counts. How many times have you had a parent say, like, don't feed my child, I'm picking them up early, we're going to the doctor. So they may be in care while you're serving meals, but they did not eat a meal. Or you have a child that gets sick during when the meal is being served. So you remove that child and wait for the parent to pick them up, but the other children are still eating. A child has to receive a meal in order for it to be counted. It's not based on attendance. Okay, something else that we require is the food purchasing form, but this is only required if you have receipts from places like DROMS, Crest, Research, that even if you go into Walmart, that you get that white strip paper receipt. Those are not itemized. How many times do you look at those and you're like, what did I buy? I can't tell what it was based on the receipt. An itemized receipt tells you how much you bought, the quantity you bought, and the exact item that you bought. So if you are getting those paper receipts, if you go into Walmart, you go to Crest, to Research, if you go into DROMS, they give you that white paper receipt. Those require this food purchasing form. When you're filling out the food purchasing form, if we're looking at an item on the form and we can't tell what it is and you don't know what it is, then it has to go in the non-reimbursable section. And this happens quite a bit on this food purchasing form. Any item that does not count towards the reimbursable meal must be put in the non-reimbursable section. So if you buy donuts or cookies or chicken nuggets without a C in label, pudding, cookies, anything that stands alone that is not count towards a reimbursable meal has to be put in the non-reimbursable section as well. So this is an example of the food purchasing form. There are some items that are highlighted in yellow. These are actual items that came from a receipt from, I think, Walmart or Research. I can't remember which one, but it's just to identify is, for instance, it said 1 8-ounce tub. Well, we don't know a tub of what, and they put on their butter. So if you know what it is, you need to put butter, so we did know what this was referring to. If you didn't put butter there and it just said tub and we didn't know what that was, then we would have to move it down to the non-reimbursable section because we didn't know if it was an item that's reimbursable or not. We have this, it says CDJK SHRF, and this was Colby Jack's cheese. Calm Pantry was the cream of mushroom. So again, when you write it down, it's really important if you are the one that's doing the shopping to really do these reports immediately, because that way you know what it is that you bought, or if somebody else is buying it for you, they do need to indicate what it is that they bought, because a lot of these items that are highlighted, you don't have a clue of what it is. So it is you really do need to mark it down, because if not, like if it just said 1 16-ounce GVRTN and rotini noodles were not next to it, it would need to be moved to the non-reimbursable section. Now, when you fill one of those out, you have to have a copy of the original receipt with it. It can be, you can also make a copy, but we have to have the original even if it is faded. Now, there's a lot of you that does not need the food purchasing form anymore. Like, it used to be a thing where you always felt like you had to do it, but I think a lot of you will be really happy to know this is not required if you use a vendor like Cisco, Highland, US Foods, Benny Keith, Tankersley, Mid-America, Gadarian. Their invoices are itemized. They're very detailed. It shows you the quantity, the weight, the size, the price, all on the receipt. If you do grocery pickup or grocery delivery, you also do not have to do the food purchasing form, because again, if you've ever printed those receipts out, they're very detailed. They usually have a picture of, like, say, bananas. They say you bought 10 pounds. Or maybe you bought 1 box of original Cheerios, 32 ounces. It's very detailed. So if you buy your food or milk from a vendor or do grocery pickup or grocery delivery, you do not need to do the food purchasing form because the receipts are itemized. Now, what you do need to do, even though they are itemized, you still have to break it down if it's food and milk or CACFP related supplies, or if anything on there is non-reimbursable. So because you still have to put that on your expenditure worksheet. So if you have a vendor, a lot of times at the very top, it will have food and milk, and at the very bottom, it will have like foil or paper plates. It does divide it up for you. But if you are using like Walmart or DROMS does grocery pickup now, there's a lot of places that do grocery pickup or grocery delivery, Target, any of these places. If you buy stuff from them and say you do have paper plates and then you also have milk, you do just need to write on there someplace like food and milk and how much you spent, and then CACFP related supplies and how much you spent. Because again, you do have to break this up when you put it on the expenditure worksheet for the month. So, but you don't have to do the food purchasing form, which is nice. You can just do that by hand at the very bottom. Now, we get this question quite a bit, and we use the butter as a really good example. So if a food item is not reimbursable on its own, but it is an ingredient in a reimbursable meal, then it is allowable. So an example, I said, if it's donuts, cookies, anything that needs to have a CN label that doesn't have a CN label, deli meat, if it's not the right deli meat, which deli meat's really hard to find anyway, then those items, or I'm sorry, not anything without a CN label, like chicken nuggets. Those items are by itself. You serve it by itself. So those would go in the non-reimbursable section. But if you're serving something like maybe you do pizza and your kids like pepperoni pizza, pepperoni is not a meat alternate, but it is an ingredient to the recipe. And the kids like pepperoni pizza way better than they like cheese pizza or sausage pizza. So it is an allowable expense. Butter is not anything on its own, but you put it on toast. It makes the toast taste better. Maybe a little bit of jelly. Maybe you buy Velveeta. Velveeta does not count as a meat alternate. However, but you put it on macaroni and cheese, and the noodles are reimbursable. So it's making it a meal that kids like. I've talked to some people that their kids really like turkey deli meat, and there is no turkey deli meat that you can buy, but it is still an allowable cost in the fact that maybe you're doing a turkey sandwich, and maybe you're doing baked beans as your meat alternate, and maybe you have cheese, accreditable cheese on the turkey sandwich, and then the bread is also reimbursable. So the turkey deli meat is just kind of an extra, but it is an allowable cost because the kids eat it because they really like turkey, even though the turkey part is not, it's not counted as a meat alternate. So I hope that does clear up a little bit of confusion about what is allowable and what is not. And if you do have questions, you can just reach out to us at the office, or you can contact your program specialist. Now, with receipts, we do have to have a copy of the entire original receipt, the ones that you would use for the food purchasing form. So those white ones, again, even if it's faded, we have to have a copy of that. We understand that if you're doing grocery pickup or grocery delivery, a lot of those are sent electronically. So those you'll just print out. But those ones that you get directly from the store, the paper copies, we do have to have the original, again, even if it's faded. Any receipt that is altered, or if like it's a paper receipt and you cut off the bottom part, those are disallowed. In a receipt or invoice that does not have the date of when it was purchased, we can't allow that because we don't know when it was purchased. We can only look at items in the month that we're reviewing. And a receipt from grocery pickup or delivery that is not the final receipt is disallowed, because again, I think if a lot of you have ever done a grocery pickup or a grocery delivery, you have your list, you submit it, and then when you go pick it up, they're like, we made substitutions or we were out of this, so we couldn't get it to you. So that's why we have to use the final one, not the one that says still in process. Now, we do take a look at your receipts. We do look at bank statements and credit card statements, especially if like you're a for-profit or your own childcare. Like if you're a military base or a school, we look at different things, but we still look at everything. But just so you know, we will validate your receipts against a bank or credit card statement, just to make sure it's it's a right receipt for you. Now, at the end of the month, you take all your food purchasing forms, or you take all of your receipts, and what you do is you put them on the expenditure reimbursement worksheet. So again, this is a summary of all allowable CACFP expenditures for the month. So when we talked about to see if you're a nonprofit status, this is what we use. So this shows us everything that you spent your money on for CACFP, whether it was food purchases, non-food, or CACFP related, or any labor. And it's only things that were used for CACFP. So if it was used for two things, like even teachers' main responsibility is taking care of the kids, but they may help with the food program. So you can charge off just a portion or prorate the part that they do work with CACFP. And all allowable expenses charged off to CACFP, it must be in the budget. If it is not in the budget, it is automatically unallowable. So let's just say again that you bought a piece of equipment like an oven, and it's not in the budget, but you have it on your expenditure worksheet. Well, unless you put it on your budget, we can't accept it. But again, you can buy it, because sometimes like with equipment, you don't always know that you need it, and you can put it in the budget and then it will be okay. But you just can't charge anything off unless it is approved in your budget. Items that are used for the entire center, not just for CACFP, again, must be prorated. So like paper towels, maybe you buy paper towels for the kitchen and for the bathroom. Again, you have to prorate the cost of the amount that you would only be using in the kitchen. And if you are confused about maybe some allowable and unallowable costs, we have a page in the procurement section that you can go to that does show some things that are and are not creditable. So this is the expenditure reimbursement worksheet. So again, this is, you're taking every receipt that you had for the month and you're putting it on this form. So this is for October for Toys and Noise, and they list all their food and milk. And again, it's split up here between food purchases and non-food purchases. So like spices and stuff would go in food purchases. This would be like paper towels, foil, paper plates, items like that. Dish soap, trash bags, anything like that. And then down here, they have labor, and they have free to fryer the cook on here twice, along with 2 other teachers. Now, in this case, the reason they're on here twice is because they get paid twice a month, or they got paid twice this month. Again, it has the check number. What you have to do is list how many hours they worked that day, the rate that they get paid a day or an hour, and then how many hours they worked in that pay period. And again, like the cook, because everything they do is for CACFP, their whole salary is fine. But now teachers or admin costs, you have to prorate that. How much time are they spending on CACFP? So again, what this does is it tells us like, this is how much they spent that much on CACFP between food and labor. This is how much they received in reimbursement. And then this is their total operating balance. So they spent way more on the program than what they did in their reimbursement, so they're fine. And again, you are allowed to carry over just a small balance forward. And again, we just have to make sure that you're in a nonprofit food service account. So you can't, again, make money on the program. We talked about this earlier. And when we come out to a review, we only do look at 1 month. So that's why we have to have your end of the year report, because some months you're going to spend more, some months you're going to spend less. So we have to look at a reflection of what you spent the whole year and what you made the whole year. So that's what it is for the end of the year report, but it is based off of your expenditure worksheet. And again, the annual expenditure reimbursement worksheet that we have, that the end of the year report that we have created, it is exactly looks just like it looks very similar, I should say, maybe missing a couple of things as your expenditure reimbursement worksheet. But again, if you use the one that's interactive and it's in the worksheet section, at the very bottom, there's 2 tabs. So if you do need more, the second tab, you can put in your expenditure worksheet, you can put in your expenditure item there if it's not listed, if you want to. And some people get income to the program. It's income to CACFP. So in that case, the one that we had, they had $64.95, and what it is they had non-program meals. So because it was October, I bet they had a Halloween party and had the parents come eat lunch with them. And you have to charge the free rate plus the rate of commodities. So this is how much that they received. So that was income to the program. Now, on the expenditure reimbursement worksheet, again, you can have food and milk. Some people don't have to put labor on there. They spend so much on food and milk, they don't need to put any labor. But some of you are not spending quite as much on food and milk, so you do have to add labor into it to show that all the money that you're spending on CACFP, which is fine. Again, if you're doing labor, it has to be approved in the budget. The center cannot charge off more than approved in the budget. So again, let's just say you hire somebody and you start them at $8 an hour, but they have the potential to make $12 an hour. So if you start them at $8 and then they ended up making $12, you can only charge off the $8. You can't charge off the $12. Now, what I would suggest to you, if they're starting off at $8 an hour, but they have the possibility of making 12, I would tell you to put the $12 an hour just to cover you, so you don't have to go back in and adjust your budget. The center cannot charge off more than the employee is paid, and we do verify this with pay stubs. So I was at a situation, I was at a center, and they were charging off $1,000 a month for the cook's salary, which sounds very reasonable. But when I looked at the pay stubs, this employee only made $1,200 a year. So she was really only making $200 a month. Well, you can't charge off $1,000 when you're only making $200 a month. So if you're like an owner or director, and maybe you're not getting paid right now, you cannot charge off salaries that are not physically being paid, because we do have to verify that with a pay stub. Any labor paid with cash, Venmo, or Cash App is not allowable unless you can show us that taxes have been paid. And we can only look at W-2 labor. So if you have 1099, which is a contract labor, for us to look at it, you would have to write a contract, send it to us, we approve it, and then you can go out on bid, and we have to make sure that you procured your employees properly. So again, you just want to probably make sure that they're W-2 employees and not contract 1099 employees. So we've talked a lot about the information that we look at when we come to do a review. So we talked about, we look at the end of the year report. We have the end of the year report. We also look at bank and credit card statements. And then we also talked about how we look at your financial viability. So it's your revenue, total revenue and total expenditures for your entire center. Now, when we come out and we're looking at things like receipts and items like that, we will look at your bank and credit card statements just to make sure all the purchases look correct. We can look at, so we highly do suggest, since you are a business, that you probably want to get one bank account for CACFP. And you might want to get one credit card for the majority of your payments. Now, we understand you may be the store and they need something at the center, so you're just going to pay it with your credit card. Just so you are aware, if any CACFP purchases are on any statements, we have the right to look at those, bank or credit card. Any place where the funds are deposited for CACFP or transferred to, we can look at those. So if you do make anything on personal, we have no problem looking at your personal bank statements. We're only looking for CACFP stuff. We don't care what you do with your other funds. But if we look at that, you cannot alter your statements. You can't omit information on your statements. You can't block anything out on your statements. We have to have all pages. So just note that if you have 4 pages on your credit card statement, we have to look at all 4 pages, even though you maybe have made one purchase or maybe you transferred funds over. We have to look at everything, because if you're blocking things out, if you're omitting information or altering it, or not sending us everything, we're very confused, so we don't know what's going on. But because it's federal dollars, we have to see where these federal dollars are going and what you're spending your federal dollars on. Donated products, donated food and milk cannot be served as part of a reimbursable meal. If anybody does want to donate anything to you, it has to be an extra. We have some people that have multiple centers as are in multi-sided, like you have one agreement number and you have lots of facilities underneath you. In that case, then you do have to have expenditure reimbursement worksheet per site. Now, we understand there's some of you that maybe you have a central kitchen, or maybe some of you buy the food at one site and then you divvy stuff out from there. If that's the case, contact your program specialist, because maybe you don't, because of how you're set up, you don't need an expenditure reimbursement worksheet form per site. But a lot of you will. But again, if you're set up differently, then contact your program specialist just to let them know. They probably already know how you are ran, but just why you may not have separated expenditure reimbursement worksheets per site. Now, we have several people on our program that it's an owner and they own, say, 4 daycare centers, but they each have their very own agreement. They're not under one sponsor. So there's not one agreement number with 4 sites underneath them. You have 4 different applications. You have to fill out 4 different claims. They're 4 separate individual sites. Because you are not a sponsor, you are set up independently. You cannot share receipts with each other's sites because you are set up to be independent. Now, if you're a sponsor and you have sites underneath that, your one agreement number, you can share receipts, but you cannot do so if you are independent. 4 independent centers, they have to be dealt with as independently when it comes to CACFP as well, because that's how you chose to be set up on our program. Now, we get a question quite often about, if we come out, what would cause you to take money back? And one would be like, if we show up and there's no records, or after the hour, there's no records available. Maybe you had errors with your family size and income application. And usually if you have a family size and income application, a lot of times you have a roster error. So maybe you approved them for free, but they should have been reduced, and you put them on the free roster. They should have been on the reduced roster. If you claim more kids than what you have in attendance, if meal counts are not properly maintained, or you don't have correct numbers, and sometimes it's just a math, records or documentation does not support the claim. If you have food items that indicated as being served on the menu as served form, but receipts do not support or show that enough of food was, there was enough food of the item, or it's also not in inventory. If you're sharing receipts with another center, if you're claiming adult meals, this is only for children unless you're an adult daycare. Adult daycare can claim their adult participants, but adults, any adult like teachers or helping with the program cannot eat for free. You cannot claim their meals. The price of the food could be absorbed in if they're a program adult, but a program adult cannot be claimed. We have some centers that you have to either be 25% free and reduced or have at least 25% DH subsidy. So however many kids you have enrolled, they have to be 25% of that, either free and reduced or DH subsidy that claimed that month. In some cases, if you fall under that 25%, and this is only if you're a for-profit daycare. If you're a nonprofit, this rule does not apply to you. But if you're a for-profit daycare, you have to be that 25% where you cannot claim for the month. So if I came out to do a review, and this has actually happened to me, I came out to do a review and you claimed, and when I'm doing the review, you only had 21% that were free reduced that month, or you only had 21% that was DH subsidy for that month, we had to take back all meals because you cannot claim if you're a for-profit daycare unless you have a minimum of 25% free reduced or 25% DH subsidy for that month.